Well, we are nearly coming to the end of Include Summit 2023, but not before our final panel of the day. So please welcome to the stage Jeff Thompson, MBE, founder, Youth Charter and former Deputy Chair of Birmingham 2022, along with the panel, Janice Argyle, Executive Director of Youth Charter, Johnny Roy, owner of JR Gym Boxing School, and Ranjit Singh, Project Manager and Head Coach of Wolverhampton Wrestling Club.
Now there is one big distinct difference. I know you can see me, but I'm struggling to see you. But I'm hoping on that basis that the next at least 45 to 50 minutes will have literally brought to an end what I'm sure in the first instance will have seen us all agree that Include 2023 has been a resounding success. I'm not sure where the organisers are. I'm hoping they're in the audience. They'll arguably be still looking at logistics of winding down what has been an incredible 48 hours of networking, old relationships, established, re-established, reconnected, but more importantly reflecting one thing that we all have in common: all things equal, diverse and inclusive. My life has been about all things equal, diverse and inclusive. From the streets to the stadium, occasionally to the rostrum, and back to the streets of the last 3 decades. But the closing session was entitled 1 Million Young People. Inspiring, hopefully sport and physical activity, arguably from areas of disadvantage and disaffection. I really have fought my life not wishing to be labelled, and I'm sure a number of you accept that stereotypes are simply the type that can be changed. And we all share what I believe that fundamental human right should be. So I'm going to get my face to the point where it's going to be blank, because what I want to share, how many of you watched the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games? I can say to you now that becoming deputy chair of those games was the single most challenge in all its enormity of anything I've done, irrespective of medals won for this country or representing this country in public life. 72 nations and territories representing 1.9 billion citizens all converged on Birmingham, either in the representative nations of the sportsmen and women who made those games what they were, but equally the volunteers, people who donated their time, energy and efforts to simply ensure that the world that they would welcome to Birmingham would reflect the Birmingham nations, of which there are 183 nations represented of the 1.5 million citizens of Birmingham. For those who didn't, I've got about 90 seconds, which I hope technology will help convey those 11 magical moments.
Welcome to Birmingham.
They've taken gold in a Commonwealth Games, and he has given that absolutely everything.
Graffiti has just exploded.
I've never seen Birmingham like this, so I am just as excited as everybody else.
That was outstanding lifting from Emily.
Wales have won the gold. What a result.
It's hi-ho Wolverhampton for Mandeep Kuna.
This was the performance of a lifetime.
This was a love letter to this city.
These games have been bold, buzzing, and absolutely brilliant.
They say sport is just the beginning. The Commonwealth Games Federation, Dame Louise Martin, the president of the Commonwealth Games Federation, as those games ended, said sport was just the beginning. However, like everything, I'm going to share with you a story, because it's interesting to note that Britain have been bidding, hosting, and pursuing legacy for the last 35 to 40 years. I'm going to tell you a Moss Side story, because that's where the journey begins. It starts with disaffection and disadvantage, but what sport and the arts and culture and all of that was encompassed and expressed in those fantastic games. When you see that type of equality and diversity included in an opening ceremony, the games, and the closing ceremony, that is why I believe that the legacy opportunity for all and those 1 million young people pledge that Include made when they attended the inaugural launch of Include 2022 in Birmingham, I knew when it came to Manchester, it was a golden opportunity. Because everything in the past, in the present, makes the future. Every face in a crowd tells a story. How many of you know of Stephen Lawrence? Well, this is interaction. Just raise your hand, nod your head, whatever matters. So much technology, we're not using the software between our ears. But ultimately, James Bulger, Benji Stanley. Well, that's a lot better response than I received from the many environments that I've presented this unique story as to why, at the end of it, and upon seeing people who have helped reflect this journey, and some even in the audience, this is something that can be achieved when we truly work in collaboration and partnership. Benji Stanley was a 14-year-old schoolboy, no different to any other 14-year-old schoolboy, or girl for that matter, who had a gift, a talent, and a potential. Deprivation and disadvantage, no hope and opportunity, a failed education system biased in its discriminatory nature, can disaffect to where exclusion and even expulsion onto the streets can put that potential at risk. On January the 2nd, 1993, when Manchester were bidding for the then 2000 Olympics, a 14-year-old schoolboy was shot dead on the streets of Moss Side. His name was Benji Stanley. I was part of the ambassadorial team for Manchester then 2000 Olympic bid, and I believe something had to change, because I'd come from those streets and I'd had sport as a fundamental human right. At 6'4" and with 5 world karate titles, not many people say no to me. Even if they want to say no, they say yes, then they do nothing as a result. How many of you know how much talk leads to very little action? Well, I'm still paranoid, that sixth sense that drives me and still motivates me, that something had to change. I was part of Live Aid in 1985. For those who won't even know what that represented, I was born in the 20th century, and that was the great moment when the arts decided that famine in Africa needed to change. I was part of Live Aid. Geldof did it with the F word. I simply said, please. We went to Wembley, and we took young people from the north to young people from the south, and we pulled everybody together, and we asked them to work in collaboration and partnership so that sport could provide an opportunity for young people to develop in life. I'm the one on the left, by the way. It's great being different. But I knew we needed a scroll, we needed a charter, we needed sportsmen and women who have come from those socioeconomically deprived backgrounds. Believe it or not, we all have something in common, and we all overcame disaffection. Even Lord Archer did time, because we all make mistakes. But would you want to be at Her Majesty's pleasure rather than leisure, as then subjects of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II? So that scroll became what it became, and became 260 sportsmen and women, and a certain Susan Hampshire who represented the artistic and cultural bridge, that would have suggested that we could develop something with regards to the art of the possible. What do we do? It's very simple. It's what I had and what everybody should have. We engage young people with sport, art, culture, and digital technology, as many of you will do here. We equip them with the mental, physical, and emotional resilience. Our young people don't have the resilience. They have a street resilience. But a life resilience that's intergenerational does not give them the mindset for when life knocks them down. So that's when we equip them. A young lady said something I'll share with you at the end that reinforces the empowerment. Because once you aspire your gift, talent, and potential, it has to be with further higher education, employability, or entrepreneurship. If it does not encompass all three into a holistic and integrated approach, it is a failed proposition. That's what we've achieved, but I'm not about what we've achieved, I'm about what we need to do now. But for those who wish to challenge the credentials, there are lots of reports and we can all give a justification. All of this, from a tragedy in Moss Side, has seen a global movement. A global movement. Sport for Peace is a result of things that happen in three. So when most people say, I don't know Benji Stanley, I say, well, Benji Stanley, Stephen Lawrence, James Bulger. At that time, the House of Commons debated the issues and decided it was the fault of young people. And I thought, well, young people were a product of their environment. And they aspire to whatever standards and leadership that we set. 30-year journey, every single games. As you all know, the term legacy is used. But legacy is never really understood. It's a nice bid document, pledge, promise, and proposal. But once the games have gone, it becomes simply a word. Birmingham 2022 was different. It pledged to provide a sporting physical activity offer to 1 million young people in Birmingham and the West Midlands, especially from disaffection and disadvantage. So that's what I held on to. It was the first carbon net zero games. More medals presented to women than men. 877 medals presented to just under 9,000 competitors. The women ended the 100 meters final rather than the men. It was as equally diverse and inclusive as any games in recent times. I'm a bit of a geek for data. If you're not getting the evidence of your work, albeit valuable, it doesn't help shift what we all believe in, what we're still having to make the case for. The one thing that still frustrates me, the time that we have to spend making the case to get the resources to do what we know is the right thing to do. I'm interested in 11,000 days, but as you'll hear from the co-founder of the Youth Charter, I'm sure it was a 24/7 existence. Those are our projects and programs, all informed by consultation. It is genuinely street community up, not third world aid, termed parachuting in, genuine community empowerment, intergenerational, holistic, and sustainable. I believe it's a fundamental human right, and if there's anyone there who doesn't believe in that, then I only apologize, but I will not say sorry. If you say sorry, it means you're legally responsible. If you apologize, you can still duck and dive the advocacy of what you should be responsible to and for. But that's what we believe in. Because when you don't provide that fundamental opportunity, that disaffection and disadvantage leads into antisocial behavior, gang-related activity, violence, and even extremism. We have young people who don't have hope and opportunity. That's why, by the way, the first genuine declaration that I'm seeking from everyone who leaves here today is like our museums and galleries where young people are given free access. Why can't the young people and children be given free access to every sporting facility, leisure centre up and down the country? If that was achieved as a result of Include 2023, that will step change what needs to happen. It happens for the arts, why can't it happen for sport? Just give it some thought. That's a charter, an Olympic charter. All the charters are there, all the protocols are there. But what's the real sustainable impact? How well are we doing? If I said to you over 30 years, I know of billions that have been invested into sport in its broadest possible impact, from major games, bidding, hosting and legacy, projects and programs, cultural programs, and within what we now see as a very mixed economy. And I use that very guardedly, because this should not be an industry. It's a movement, it's a sector, it's a civil society sector. Believe it or not, when we don't get this right, it costs all of us, whether you're taxpayers, whether in your ability to enjoy quality of life. I'm sure each and every one of you have a story that will depict a direct or indirect link with a young talent and potential who either didn't have it realised, or, worse, has become a victim of the University of Crime or street life. The cost-benefits analysis is showing you how much work that we've done, the research and innovation of the free reports that we've made available over the last 48 hours, is so you appreciate and understand we've done the conceptualization, we've done the policy research, we've done the data analysis. It's time to get things done. That's how you join it all up, people. It was developed as a result of the Millennium Development Goals for Africa. Then the UN decided that everybody across the 5 continents needed the Sustainable Development Goals. And that community campus portal means we don't have to compete, we need to collaborate. All of our work, representative, with the rights to your information, given the responsibility, but ultimately allowing us to go to Treasury and fund banks and the World Bank, because that's where I go. Because they asked me what am I asking for. I said about $5 billion. They checked the credentials of my sanity. And we started a dialogue in 2014. I took a concept to what is now a live legacy pledge delivered. That is the Birmingham Community Campus. It is live. It is pulling together local projects and programs that haven't got the time to fill in an application form. They haven't got time to go through administrative and operational governance. But that's all done for them, so they can get on with the vital work of working with the young people. There are 17 goals, we use 7. We leave the other 10 to the creativity and innovation. But education is the key. Health and well-being, no poverty, gender equality, partnerships for the goals. I'd argue that hunger and, I suppose, ultimately, partnership, justice, and strong institutions. Because if we have the mental, physical, emotional health and well-being, that in itself is a fundamental human right and intergenerationally possible. Believe it or not, there was a manifesto. Next year, you will be asked to vote. Well, you're going to be voting, I think, today, local elections. How many of you are voting? Well, you're in here, so you can't have voted. You might have voted very early. That's your democratic right. There was a manifesto for the 2019 elections before lockdown. How many of us actually remember what it was like? Have we become resilient in now talking about the stories as we now convene and do what we're supposed to do as a Homo sapiens species? But all our politicians, by the way, I'm 8 prime ministers in public life, and I think only one inspired me. I won't disclose who. That's the first duty of any government. If they don't, we have a right to challenge. That's good democracy. That's what we've been advocating for a number of years. But ultimately, if we get that right, your lives, the work that you're committed to doing, starts to make significant progress. A social, economic, and political win-win-win for young people, communities, and those in the positions of power, always remembering that young people are a short, medium, and long-term investment. Therefore, the short-term funding, respective policies and governments do not work. That's what collaboration and partnership looks like. I've only highlighted some of the key agencies that we've worked with. I can testify to you today, over the last 30 years, I've engaged with over 1,000 agencies, either in collective, consortia, or representations to respective governments of that time, whether it be the UN, wherever it may be, wherever it's taken place. However, if we take 10% of a games effort that you saw in Birmingham, that we saw in Manchester, and for anyone who doubts, go to East Manchester today. I could not go to East Manchester on the basis of what I look like, possibly where I came from. They wouldn't have known what I believed in, whom I loved, who I didn't choose to love, because they would have killed me. Manchester is now, in East Manchester, the real evidence of legacy in action. But it takes time. But I believe that we can accelerate it. By the way, the East End of Manchester, the East End of Glasgow, the East End of London, the East End of Birmingham, there are some consistencies. Those are all areas of historical deprivation and disadvantage. And major games are secured on the pledge that they will improve the lives of the area and the people who live in that area. This is our national call to action. 10 cities. We're going to recruit, select, and deploy 1,000 social coaches in each of those cities. And by the way, a social coach is just an extraordinary human being with a degree in common sense. And it's the young, inspirational words of wisdom I've taken from young, gifted potential. I just want somebody who I can trust in, who can trust in me. A social coach is the person that you see in your community every single day. I had people inspire me when people told I wouldn't amount to much. And it's an accredited program. If you want participation, you need coaches. You need social coaches to relate to the language, culture, and behaviors of the streets. For the streets, by the streets. I won't bore you, but that's the costed plan. 10 cities, 10 campuses, 10,000 social coaches, 1 million young people directly impacted on. We have an indirect ambition of over 10 million young people. Why? Because the mobile interactive age is how we can bring about the sea change that we need to. The consultation has represented thousands of hours, because I'm sure you will all agree it takes hard work. There's no smart, clever shortcuts to this. It's hard work. The 10-point action plan is for you to decide to take forward. When I started to look at what 30 years would look like going forward, as I said, I was born in the 20th century at 65, I think I've given back what was invested in me. If every single one of you here, just as you're sat here, and you go back and amplify what's been shared today, we will make the change that is required. All intimately possible, because the art of the possible lies with you. By the way, social coaches only give 2 hours a week. That's all you contribute. Volunteers for Olympic, Paralympic Games, Commonwealth Games, and all major events contribute their free time for multi-billion investments of major games. Incredible, isn't it? Free time for all that to happen. The volunteers made Birmingham 2022. And they will make future games in the future. That's why social coaches is the golden thread in all of this. That's the program. That's the opportunity. I'm going to stop there, because I always like to leave it for politicians and what they say they're going to do, and with the best will in the world, until you hold them to account, will they deliver it? Janice Thompson, yes, she is my wife. I met her 40 years ago at the World Championships in Taiwan. She won bronze, I got 2 golds. She was a heavyweight, and we decided we might merge our medal-winning power. And then in London, 1985, she won gold on the Saturday, and I've never had more pressure on the home games that I deliver. She's the co-founder of the Youth Charter, and Johnny Roy represents the Moss Side experience. But he'll give something by way of what is invested in him being simply invested in others. Ranjit was a baton bearer at Birmingham 2022, runs the most, by the way, they're all combat sport, slightly. I believe a combat sport should be fundamental must-haves in every aspect of society. So from the elderly who do Tai Chi, to those who've got a point to prove, to those who are rather more aggressively wanting to win something and get medals and consider themselves masters of the universe. And equally for that reason is why it provides the most equitably diverse, inclusive, best return on investment. Ranjit runs, I think, the oldest wrestling club in the country. Ranjit? Pretty close to it, 45 years, up in the 70s. But the World Kabaddi Championships taking place as a legacy event in Birmingham, West Midlands, in 2005. 2 years' time. So already the legacy in action has begun. Ranjit's already a social coach, we're already brokering and realizing the art of the possible. So when people talk about why this call to action is so important, Johnny, I'm going to hold you to account first, because your story is equally as reflective of people considering I'm a weirdo, and I'm not a freak of nature, and equally, Johnny has sporting credentials because he was a world kickboxing champion. But it wasn't exactly something that was afforded you. Well, share the story, because my story is all exhausted. And what you're doing now. Johnny doesn't like being interviewed or put on the spot.
So, the help assistance that was given by yourself made a massive impact. Growing up as a single parent, in a single parent family, I had my brother and my sister, but I was watching my mum doing things day in, day out, working 2, 3 jobs and getting no assistance. The only people throughout, we are good athletes, brother, sister, all of us competed for England, but the youth charter, yourself namely, was the only person that actually offered assistance. That was the very first grant that I ever got at 13 years of age. I'm over 50 now, and we're still friends. I still value your opinion. And in our community, there was a lot, unfortunately, single parent families. Dads were not standing up for whatever the reason. I'm not getting into that, but dads were not standing up, and mothers having to deal with everything financially, as well as morally, as well as the list goes on, as well as working 2 and 3 jobs to make sure there's food on the table. It was all of yourself and the youth charter who said, well, okay, if your child is an excellent at such and such, we will help, we will take that burden off you a little bit. And that gave us the incentive, my mum and yourself, very similar mindset. So as soon as that them funds came available, my mum said straight away, well, if that is what they're going to do, you're going to need to work even harder to justify why you've received something. Don't take it for granted. So we was pushed, as well as academically, we was pushed. And the only reason why there's the likes of the crime element in our communities is because certain people have just given up, whether it's parents or children or somebody has given up. That is where the breakdown occurs. As long as there's hope, as long as you are striving towards something, as long as you see some kind of support from people who you may or may not even know, that gives you the incentive to keep on the right road. And it's too easy to come off that road and find ourselves in all kinds of trouble. So I'll have to thank yourself for that.
No, it wasn't so much just me, but what are you doing now? Because there's an intergenerational benefit of what normally would suggest by way of societal stereotype is, well, I'd certainly still consider myself, even at 65, an endangered species. I make that reference because so many of the young men in particular, and women, who come from that 1.7%, I might add, of the 13% of the minorities that make up this green and pleasant land, is that how can we not be, not included? I want to be embedded into society. But what are you doing now? Because that's what really excites me on the basis of a little bit that was given to me that I put back, that you've now put back.
Well, what we're doing, I'm merging both your influence and my mum's influence together. So we have a boxing school now. And I own the boxing school. We have athletes coming from all over the Northwest and further afield to benefit from the physical aspects of what we do, but we also educate the students too. So they have the education program from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. and then the physical boxing starts from 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. So I found it very beneficial having the two sides of the coin. We need to get physically achieve what we can achieve, but we also need to be mentally able to handle that pressure, to handle moving forward. We found it fantastic with regards to the assistance that we're given and the position that we are in with regards to these children, letting them know you need to be physically as good as you can, but also you need to be as educated as you can. And if you fail on the physical side, or if you fail on the education side, then there's consequences. So our athletes, if they're failing on the education side, you can't box until your grades come up. Simple as that. We cannot improve ourselves just by the physical alone. It has to be some kind of a mental input to go with that.
The last 30 years have seen many examples, but on the basis of where Johnny started, what life expectancy at the time, where lives were being lost every single day. When I do see what he's doing now, it is a priceless proposition. By the way, they still struggle for funding, and he won't mind me embarrassing him. He has funded that. How can that be? How is that not a responsibility of all of civic and civil society? Janice Argyle-Thompson is the most resilient individual I know, because she's had to suffer me for all those thousands of days, hours, seconds, months and years. Actually, it was Janice who said, "Are you going to do something about this?" when Benji Stanley was murdered. And I knew that I was pretty much living large. I was part of what many people considered the establishment. And I knew that by making that step into the bid office of what was a global attraction at Benji's loss of life, the whole issue of what was the first life lost in this country due to the gang culture, the cause, the effect, the impact, what's gone wrong, what needs to be put right. I'd served with cricketing legend Clive Lloyd as part of an Inner-City Review group after the riots in the 80s. So we've been up and down these communities. So how could it have been got so badly wrong? Janice will tell you her story, because everyone thinks that this is just a black issue. I can honestly say that poverty does not discriminate if you go to those historical areas of deprivation. But more importantly, Janice has been a mother, and she has children that are different, because our little union produced children that were different, and we had to make them resilient. But by the way, they are the epitome of the Youth Charter philosophy, because it wasn't much good me advocating that others do it if it wasn't going to happen in my own backyard. Janice, you had your own personal reasons for taking up the discipline that you did, but everyone always sees me as the relentless, driven individual. There is the most driven individual I know, but as the executive director and everything else that's required. Oh, by the way, the Youth Charter has a team of 3 people. It's been pretty consistently that for all the years that I can remember. And Peter Raymond's here, someone has been there for the duration of the journey, volunteered his efforts, and we've had £1 million over 30 years. If I gave you the socioeconomic impact of our work, it might cause some to question the whole efficacy of everything that's been realised to date. But Janice, just your thoughts on the basis of a manifesto and recommendations that you have helped type, produce and advocate.
Yeah, just to give you a little bit of background about me and why I started karate. I was actually attacked when I was 16 years old. I just started karate at the time, and that made me determined to go all the way in karate to make sure that I could defend myself, very basically. I'm naturally a very competitive person, so I literally just took on karate and just really went for it. And then 1982, the first Kumite, which is the fighting side of karate, actually were holding European Championships and then World Championships. So I went for selections, was selected, and literally to our first World Championships, which were in Taiwan. Jeff was also at the World Championships, sat next to each other on the plane, and the rest of they say is history.
23 hours.
23 years of bending my ear. So yeah, just moving fast forwarding. We got married on the 21st of September. On the 28th of September, we moved to Manchester. And we actually, first of all, our first job was Jeff was working at Salford University Business Services. That was the reason we worked up. He was setting up a sports division there. And then literally very soon after that, Manchester were bidding for the Olympic Games, for the 2000 Olympic Games. So I ended up working there, sports liaison, and Jeff was an ambassador for those games. And that's when literally the trouble started. That's when gang-related activities started. People were out on the streets. They likened Moss Side to Los Angeles and Beirut, where there was tons and tons of trouble. Young people were out killing one another for whatever reason. And it just escalated. And then literally, as Jeff mentioned, there were the 3 deaths. There was also Joel Stewart, so there were actually 4 in a very short space of time. And yeah, we said we have to do something about this. And we had some great backing from local people, Manchester Evening News, and obviously we related all the work that we planned to do, and then we launched in Wembley. The Sport England used to hold a recreation management conference. They held that in Wembley Arena, and we actually brought down literally a massive community from Manchester, meeting with the communities in London. I think how many schools we had?
Too many.
Yeah, and literally we had what is an Agora space. There is one actually in Hume in the Proctor Youth Centre. We had one of those put up indoors. By this time, I think I was about 5-6 months pregnant with our eldest son. And we set up the Youth Charter, we launched it there, and everything went literally from strength to strength, but not through any financial support. That strength to strength came from everybody that we brought in and brought on board with us. Jordan was born into the Youth Charter, and I was saying, I'm not sure if Shelley's still here, Shelley Holroyd. You in here, Shelley?
No.
No, she's gone. We worked in a very small office on Deansgate, and Jordan was either in one of these carry things that, you know, put around you, or he was on a mat on the floor in a pushchair in this tiny little office. And we literally worked probably, even back then, 12 hours a day, and I have to say that has not changed. We're constantly fighting for funding, we're fighting to bring people together, we're fighting to collaborate. Hence, anybody that came to the Youth Charter stand today, that we're saying, you know, please sign up, please join, sign up to the community campus, sign up to our portal so you can upload all the work you're doing, whether it be advertising projects and programs that you're doing, whether you're sending photographs or video footage of the work that you're doing so you can share it with your local communities, you can share it with the wider community, and other people will literally log on, find out what you're doing. They might join in, they might decide to set up themselves, but if we could all work in collaboration, it will make such a difference. I can't stress enough the work that we've done to try and pull that together, hence us working with Ranjit and Johnny and everybody else that signed up. I know quite a lot of people have signed up now, and we're all working together. We're all doing similar things, but if we work together, we can do so much more.
I think it's a nice segue into Ranjit. Ranjit was part, so 2002 Commonwealth Games was the games changer, the most inclusive games, Paralympic athletes competing with able-bodied athletes, and I use that word guardedly, on the same programme. In Birmingham, those who finished last got a bigger cheer than those who finished first. The spirit was incredible. But Ranjit he is a social coach. By the way, all of you are social coaches, primarily in what you do, but we've never been identified as one leadership accredited programme that can actually start making the inroads for funding that goes beyond a year or 2 years. We're looking at a 10-year cycle of funding. Ranjit, you were a baton bearer, that's how we first met. Was it like leading up to the Games, and what's it been like since the Games?
Well, I suppose leading up to the Games we did what we did. I mean, we're primarily a wrestling club. It's been running it's in its 51st year. Of serving the communities, giving back to the community. And I suppose leading up to the Games, it was looking forward to, being on something local, which would affect the communities, which would affect us personally, and to kind of drive off that, we expected, I suppose, to be bluntly, we expected a lot more. It was great for the community and our club itself, and the engagement was again up so many levels. But I think that was due more to the club itself than I suppose the games gave us back. It gave us a platform, I would say. Definitely gave us a platform to develop further. But I think a lot of that hard work was already being done by the club and continued to be done so. But the big change, I would say, from the Commonwealth Games was obviously meeting yourself, Jeff. We were due to meet probably 12 months prior to that. And you came to the baton bearer ceremony, and we just clicked from that time. We had the common goals. We wanted to help people, and like I say, give back. And you know, you've run the social coaches program at our place now, and that I think is the most important thing that's come from the games itself.
Thanks, Freddie. By the way, organising committees don't deliver legacy. As deputy chair of those games, we were there to deliver successful games. However, it is the local authority, the private sector, and those that were skills, employability, cultural programs, everything geared to those 11 days. But any successful games is only truly successful, as Manchester has proven, in the regeneration and renewal of the city and hope and opportunity for the young people and communities of that city. Ranjit and Wolverhampton Wrestling Club will be in a rich vein of opportunity. They were given the GI Group, who delivered the game's employability provision for Birmingham 2022, actually provided some tickets for members of Wolverhampton Wrestling Club to come and experience the games. Those were the things that happened because that's what does happen, but it's not until the games end we start looking at a legacy opportunity for all. Everything that we've been about is already in action. That call to action has been delivered as we speak, because we can't afford to fail. This is what Andy Burnham opened Include. I started work with him in 1997 with the Football Task Force. As a former Health Secretary, Culture Secretary, Secretary to the Treasury, then Mayor of Manchester, he knows what's required. If any of you doubt it, if you were going through Princess Road, do a left at the Heineken Distillery and you reach the Moss Side Millennium Powerhouse. That powerhouse has inspired the Windsor Lifestyle Centre and all of the youth zones. Sometimes it's not worth taking the credit because we've not achieved the end objective. And once people say what they say, when anybody wants to challenge me as to why we should not collaborate, those are the lives that are priceless, that I will challenge any single one of you. They will not watch the coronation on Saturday. They were not at Birmingham 2022. And for all the initiatives, for all the resources, because we don't work together, those are the lives that have been lost. Those still haunt me and inspire me to fight for the streets I've come from. Every single one of you, directly or indirectly, will know a face in the crowd. If every life is priceless, how are we still hemorrhaging so many lives? It's very powerful, isn't it? Oh, it's had the desired impact. That's why we need to focus. That's why we need to work together. And by the way, when you meet the parents who've lost their young loved ones, I can only be embarrassed and say I'm sorry, because I thought Benji Stanley would be the only life lost. I didn't like losing in sport, so why would I want to lose young lives? Why does it begin to be acceptable in a developed country? Oh, by the way, it's a lot more diverse. It is equitably unacceptable. But sport and the arts is the vaccine and the antidote. It is not the panacea and it is not the treatment, but it will give you time in order for us to collectively ensure, as I expect it, when I've succeeded, is when there are no lives lost. It's as simple as that. Up until then, we all have a responsibility. So I ask you to take those images back with you, share it with your colleagues, and whilst many of you may not have heard of the Youth Charter, because I'm quite frankly embarrassed that myself, fellow world champion, wife, confidant, and significantly more important than I, because she had to bring up 3 children whilst I was doing all this madness. A global movement, but we're still losing lives. By the way, just so you understand that there is, from tragedy, there is opportunity. June 16th, for those who know what the 76 Soweto uprisings represents, the late President Mandela's legacy, the late great Muhammad Ali's legacy, are all enshrined. The late Kofi Annan, who was a world-class sprinter, but wanted to serve. The social coach reflects the Ali principles: confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect, and spirituality. Those are all values we could all transcend, and he was vilified, now became the most iconic, transcendent, intergenerational inspiration. By the way, Muhammad Ali spent 2 hours a day where he gave back. Nobody knew. He'd just turn up on your door. Hey, it's Muhammad Ali. He'd sit and have tea. He left 10% of every fight purse in the city that he fought, because he believed the rent you pay on earth secures your room in heaven. Oh, by the way, we all need to believe, belong, and identify with something. So that's all it's ever represented. But those lives will continue to motivate us. The call to action falls to every single one of you. This isn't a one-man band. This is not something to compete for. Oh, by the way, can you imagine the direct and indirect impact it has on loved ones, family, friends, communities, and society as a whole? It's immense. The word should always be left with the young. The young lady who stated that she just wants someone that she can believe in, who will believe in her. That's what a social coach is for. That's what I had. Some people saw the good in me. Not too sure now what they see, but there you go. I'm comfortable in my skin. It took me a number of years to get to that point, by the way. This is so easy is why it's so difficult. The Ubuntu of post-apartheid South Africa, the late Steve Biko, the genius who said, we don't have money, but we have the extraordinary, indomitable human spirit. By me is the we of the contribution. Before the lottery, this was done. As soon as the lottery happened, we can't do it unless we get a grant. Who said so? 2 hours a week from each of you, and we can change the world. Believe it or not, this year is the Commonwealth Year of Youth. Believe it or not, the big institutions haven't been here. But I know the Professional Footballers Association are getting ready to make that renewed commitment back to the communities. The London Legacy Development Corporation, of which I'm a board member, is looking at the Olympic Park. By the way, you're all invited to the London Youth Games on July 1st and 2nd. If they asked you, say Jeff Thompson invited you. I'm the chairman of the Youth Games. Use your power. You all have that power. Every single one of you. This is nothing that can be individually done. Take 10% of a game's effort in delivering this effort, and you will be amazed of the sea change that we can create. Trinidad and Tobago host the Commonwealth Youth Games. I don't know anyone from Manchester that's going or representing, but I do know this. What I've shared with you 3 decades on represents what will the next decade look like? What part will you all play? As you go home, what will your hearts and minds convey to the communities you go back to, the projects and the programs you go back to? That's our philosophy. But the one thing I will tell you is this. Vision without action is but a dream. Action without vision is merely passing time. Vision with action can change the world. Please do not wait for it to happen or think you're doing it in isolation to the benefit of each and every one. Not possible. But what will be here for you to reflect on as you go back to your homes, Include 2023. Our organisers are present. Where are you? One. There was always two. The partnership. No, come up, because I think you're not going to sit there, because I'm getting this red buzzing of 4 zeros, and I'm not. I'd like to see who's going to tell me I've got to leave the stage, but there you go. Jamie, where are you? Oh, you need to come out as well. The shy, introverted self. Safe journey, thanks for coming. When they brought the idea to Birmingham, everyone said it wasn't possible. They've all worked within the institutions, and everybody converged on Birmingham. And I said, what are you going to do? You can take them. They said, want to take to Manchester. I went, brilliant. Because Manchester is where revolution, activism, you're only 4 minutes away from where Emily Pankhurst decided to address the inequality and form the suffragette movement in Moss Side. So I knew why I was there. It made sense to me. Anti-apartheid, the end of slavery, Abraham Lincoln, Rolls-Met Royce. So as you go away from Include 2023, you cannot say you didn't hear, you didn't see, you didn't witness, and what can you do?
Thank you, Jeff.
There are some potential bad boys in the house.
Ooh. Can we put the lights up? The audience.
Oh, Wendy.
I thought I could hear you.
There are some people who share the journey.
Stand up, stand up, stand up, come up.
Dorothy, Tally, where are you? Jean, Leah.
Jordan.
By the way, I've got a vested declared interest. He's ours, as in ours, and he is the European Cruiserweight champion. He will be world champion because it's in his DNA. I actually went back to the school that tried to expel him, did the assembly. It's great when people give up on you, but what I'm saying is, they've been part of the journey. You need that diversity. It's not one single culture, it's not possible. Tally and them boys are gone, but they even came.
No, they're up
You're
the top.
Oh, you're trying to play exclusive as well.
Reese?
Yeah, they're all there, they're all here.
Where's Audrey?
All that would give you a certain sense of anxiety.
Audrey?
Every single one. Where's Audrey?
Oh,
she came with us when we went to Los
Jean
Angeles.
standing?
We went on a tour group to Los Angeles after the riots. We took young people to Los Angeles in the centenary of the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. They came back and said, we want what they have. The Moss Side Millennium Powerhouse became that. It was a dream. It was an aspiration. Odessa McCullough is now in Hollywood as a result of that tour group. An agent representing scriptwriters for some of the programs you will watch on Sky but wouldn't even be aware. But I will say this, they're alive. And Dorothy Roy made my mother, I think they're both from the same school. Tough love. I make no excuses for it. Tough love and intensity. If that means they can stand as most are there today, but they carry something that I hope will inspire them to bigger and greater things.
Thank you, Jeff. Is this on? Yeah, it's on. Just what an ending, what a way to include Summit. I know a lot of you have got trains to catch and need to get away, so I think Jamie and I will keep this quite brief. But just to say thank you really for all the support that we've had over the last year since we did include 2022. Just a few names. I don't want to forget anyone, so I've written a few names down, and if I do forget anyone, I do apologise. But just our team really, who've been here, like Matt, Lucy, Emily, Iman, Cassie, Steve, Emma, Stuart, Jenny, Taya, Jess, who has been instrumental in doing everything on the app and all the admin in the background, getting all this together. Just everyone at Manchester Central for all your support. Thank you for everything. Sterling, the sound and AV guys, and then obviously all the speakers, sponsors, and people who've helped us put this event together. Thank you. And most of all the attendees and this community that is growing, people who are part of this journey, who want to make a change, not just for the sports sector, but as Jeff has been alluding to, in society as well. You know, as we've been saying, if more underprivileged, underrepresented people do better in life, we all do better in life. And that's all it comes down to. And that's what this is about. So now, our next step is to get more senior leadership from business, from government, from sport, into rooms like this. And that's where we're going next. So we get more decision makers to start really kicking on with this journey that we're on. So a massive thank you. And Jamie, thank you. You know, it's been another great year working with you, and you know, we'll chat later anyway.
Thank you.
I guess all I want. That's you. All I wanted to add to that was, if you have had a good time, please tell everyone they need to come next time. This is something that is a passion project. We've put everything into this over the last 2.5 years with a few other people. We've had lots of offers of support and people wanting to help. If you're serious about that, please stay with us. Please link in with us. Please come on the journey. If there's anyone you think you can link us with that needs to be here, that can give us some money, would be amazing. But in support in a whole bunch of other ways, from marketing, media, event delivery, everything. We're all about collaboration, community, and doing this together. So yeah, thank you. Keep in touch. Give us more ideas. Get involved. We're not sure where yet, but we'll see you next year somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.